Hello class. In this video we're going to cover section 2.7. We're going to start talking about linear functions and their intercepts. This word intercepts is going to come up quite a bit this semester, and also for those of you that are taking future math classes, you will hear the term intercepts, whether it's x and y intercepts or horizontal and vertical intercepts. This is a word that you're going to want to become familiar with. Okay? So on the next page, we're going to talk about learning how to graph using x and y intercepts. Okay, so it looks like on the bottom of this page they show a table and a graph that we used earlier. I think the equation was this 3x plus y equals 3, and that equation was rewritten in terms of y, which is what we learned to do last video. All right, we learned how to isolate a variable by itself or solve an equation for a letter. So in this case, we solved this equation for y in terms of x. That's what you see here. And then you can put in all these values for x to find a value for y, right? And then you were able to graph. So this was a numerical representation of this equation. This is a graphical representation of this equation, and so on. But the question is, if I didn't have the table, how could I graph this equation? So you look to the next page, and toward the bottom, whoops, let me change my pointing tool. You'll see a little definition here. It says graphing a line using horizontal and vertical intercepts. So maybe pause the video and take a moment to look through this yellow box. Again, this is going to be very important for future classes and this class. You're going to do quite a bit of graphing, and it's very easy to graph if you can quickly identify the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Okay, and then just to give you a little color here, you know, what is the x-intercept and the y-intercept? What are they actually talking about? If I were to have a graph, if this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis, let's say I had a line that looked like this. The point where we cross the x-axis, whoops, is called the x-intercept, right? So this point here, right, because we cross the x-axis, that's the x or horizontal intercept. And the point here where we cross the y-axis would be called the y-intercept or the vertical intercept, okay? And again, they give us some good information how to find these intercepts, right? To find x, you can sub in 0 for y. To find the y-intercept, you can sub in 0 for x. We'll cover this in a little bit, okay? If we go to the next page, right? So they tell us, okay, listen, if I have this equation, 3x plus y equals 3, if I want to find the intercepts, well, if I want the x-intercept, I sub in 0 for y, and that's what you see them doing here. And when they solve this, they're left with x equals 1. And now to find the y-intercept, you sub in 0 for x. That's what you see doing here. And you solve for y. Right? So as an ordered pair, this would be 1, 0, and this would be 0, 3. Right? Because remember, here we made y 0, and on the second equation, we made x 0. Right? So if I have 1, 0, and 0, 3, if we go back to the previous graph, if I can find it, oopsie, there we go. I tried to really blow it up. You'll see, right, 1, 0 is my x-intercept, and 0, 3 was my y-intercept. Okay. Okay, so here's an example. It says find the x and y intercepts for the line 2x plus 3y equals -6. And then graph the line by plotting these 2 points. So I'm going to rewrite this problem over here. Just rewrite, here we go. Okay, so it looks like this. So if I want to find the y-intercept, we sub in 0 for x. So I'm left with 2 times 0 plus 3y. And we know anything times 0 is 0, so you're left with 3y equals -6, or y equals -2. But let me show the step. I kind of jumped the gun. Right? We're going to divide everything by 3, and we're left with y equals -2. So the ordered pair would be 0, -2, right? Because we subbed in 0 for x. Okay. Now let's say I want to do the same problem, but now I want to find the y-intercept. So let me rewrite. Right, so this time if I want the x-intercept, I sub in 0 for y, and I'm left with 2x equals -6. I divide everything by 2. And actually, you know, I skipped a step again. I jumped the gun. Sorry about that. I really should show you the 2x plus 3 times 0, just so you see that I'm subbing in the 0. And now I'm left with 2x equals -6, divide by 2. You get x equals -3. So your ordered pair would be -3, 0, right? Because this time we subbed in 0 for y, right? 0 was subbed in for y. The first problem, 0 was subbed in for x, right? So there's my x, and there's my y. So this now becomes 2 points we can graph, right? 0, -2, and -3, 0. And again, I just want to mention that we call this the y-intercept because we are intercepting or intersecting the y-axis. And this point is called the x-intercept because that's where we cross the x-axis. Okay. On the next page, there's some practice problems. These are good to practice. Copies of the graph and answers can be found in the back of the book. But I'm just going to do one of these problems. So let's try number 4. Okay. And so again, if I want the y-intercept, I have to sub in 0 for x. So I have 4 times 0 minus 6y equals -12. Divide by -6 to get y equals 2. Right? And remember, it's really 0, 2 as an ordered pair. And then we have to do it again, right? So this time I have 4x minus, this time I'm going to sub in 0 for y. Right? We have to sub in 0 for y here. And you're left with 4x equals -12, divide by 4, and you're left with x equals -3, and the ordered pair would actually be -3, 0. Okay. Now the instructions do say to graph this, graph this line using those 2 points. So I'm going to create a quick rough graph. Hopefully you guys have graph paper at home. So there's a copy of my rough graph. It's not a Picasso, but it will do. So my first point was 0, 2. So that's a point up here. And my second point was -3, 0. It's a point here. And if you have a ruler or a straight edge or your driver's license or a credit card, you can kind of draw a line through there. That's my graph, okay? I'm going to do another video, probably 2 more videos to finish this lesson. Thanks for watching. Look for my next video.